Do you wish you could get virtual attendees to turn their cameras on? Is engagement the number one issue on your virtual meetings? Do you want your meeting to be the most engaging virtual meeting? Well, welcome to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. In this podcast, we'll talk to the top people around the world in virtual meetings and give you, the listener, the best ideas to host engaging virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Now, let's welcome your host, the author of the #1 Amazon hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings, John Chen. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. I'm fresh off of my trip from New Orleans, or if you're there, it should be Nolans. And got a chance to keynote while I was there. Working for TechLearn, I was able to do a small piece in what's known as their test kitchen. Shout out to Felice Banner and family and friends, something that she's headed up for multiple years. It's really cool, actually. There are like over 30 tables that you could visit, 6 of them, any 6 that you want. Everyone had speakers, and they only had 10 minutes. I was able to show 3 things that you didn't know that Zoom could do in 3 minutes. If you want to know what they are, comment me in the past. All right, so hit the comments. What else did I do? I did one of my most technologically advanced programs, Seeds of Virtual Facilitation. And this is the first time I've ever adapted it to an in-person classroom. And let me tell you, it was wicked cool. Thank you to everyone who came and also gave me reviews. I got a stack of actual yellow reviews that people actually wrote things to me in addition to my online comments. I appreciate all of you. And then after that, the fun jaunt was to tear down that setup and move it to another room in 15 minutes or less and work a 5-hour employee appreciation for one of my amazing clients. That's what you can do when you're on the road, when you have engaging virtual meetings. Now, we have yet another guest here on Engaging Virtual Meetings. She specializes in opening prospects. She loves the beach and spends 8 of them in Florida just so she can be closer to that beach. She calls herself the Chief Door Opener. Let's welcome the one and only Caryn Kopp.
Whoa.
Ooh, I got a whoa out of that intro. Hey, Caryn. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. See, now, do you get intros like that on your podcast or not? I just want to know.
Yours was better.
I feel like close. Like, who did it better? I think Caryn did today. She's got the blue on. So,
right.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Caryn, for coming on to this. I know we got a chance to meet online, and I really love to hear from my friend. Well, now I will say the majority of my friends, because I have many entrepreneurs and solopreneur friends, they are interested in sales. So this podcast should be very, very interesting. I'm like 99.4% sure that something that Caryn will say will help you sell something in the future. But for my friends who don't know you, Caryn, do us a favor. Tell us who you are and what you do.
So my name is Caryn Kopp. People know me as the Chief Door Opener because we get our clients in the door with their prospects for the first meeting. People come to us usually when they want to get in the door with the C-suite, SVP, VP, sometimes director level, to discuss big engagements. We are just celebrating the beginning of our 25th year in business. So we've been doing this a long time. What we do is a very happy thing, because if you don't get in the door, you don't really get the chance to do much of anything else in sales. So getting our clients in the door for the first meeting is usually very appreciated by our clients, and we're happy to do it.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. I was just checking our live streaming here on YouTube, and that we're streaming strong. So thank you so much for that. So Caryn, let's start with this. How did you get into sales? Sales is definitely one of those things that, right, there's most of the time, I think there's a few colleges that now have it, but most colleges did not have sales courses. So I'm just curious, what was your path to sales?
There was really no other path. In fact, my father was an entrepreneur, and he was in sales. And I always said, I don't want to do what my father did. And all roads led me here. No matter what I did, it always led me back to sales and owning my own business, which is kind of funny. When I was 11 years old, I had my first cold calling job. The family I babysat for had a Long Doctor franchise. And the mother said to me, "You have a good phone voice. Why don't you go into our basement? We have some cubicles down there, pick up what was at the time the phone book, and start making some calls to see if you can get us some free lawn evaluations." And I did that. I found it really easy for me to speak to people I didn't know. I found it fascinating that when I changed the cadence of my voice or I changed certain words, it would change the outcome, which has started this whole lifelong study of language and what language does for people in terms of getting the outcomes that they're looking for. So all roads led me to sales.
Oh, well, that's amazing that it led you to sales. Now, I'm just going to reflect on kind of my current events. I've been watching a collection of movies. Now, a lot of times, and even before I started my own company, sales on the outside, if you're not doing it, can really have a bad impression. I guess it might be because like the stereotype is the car salesperson. And what did I just watch recently? I just recently watched Painkiller. I don't know. It's on Netflix. It was about the selling of OxyContin to the United States and how they train their sales force. The other one, of course, right now, The Wolf on Wall Street, our good friend Leonardo DiCaprio, showing how sales are done of penny stocks. So I know there's kind of like maybe a dark side and a light side of sales. I'd be curious about, after all these years, how do you view sales and how do you try and explain it to other people?
Well, sales is really about helping people. People have to make decisions all the time. So the salespeople should be there to help the people who need to make the decisions make the best decisions for them, even if the best decision is not using what the seller has to offer. That's important too. But that is not often the case. It's not always the case where sales is helping people. Sometimes people get into it and they just want to push their products and services on these unsuspecting buyers, no matter whether it's good or bad, but that doesn't help anybody in the end. If you do a really good job identifying who needs to know you, not who you know, but who needs to know you, and helping them to make a decision that's going to benefit them, then that really is the pinnacle of sales. And if you're targeting the right people, then the sales will happen at an accelerated pace, versus if you don't spend time figuring out who really needs to know you.
Yeah, I think all of the manipulation pieces like that, where you're putting stuff on people who don't really want it, has a short-term value. Eventually, it ends. Sometimes it ends badly. The second part, I think, to me, that I've learned about sales is that what you're really trying to earn or sell is trust. Trust in you first, before anything. And sometimes that trust comes from, you don't need my stuff right now. I actually have somebody else for you at this stage. You can come back to me later when you hit this stage, So something like that. So I don't know. What are your views on either building trust and how trust is a part of the sales process?
It's a critical part of the sales process in every part of it. People tend to think about just the first meeting and what happens after that. But what we do is we help create the path to the first meeting. We get that first meeting for our clients. And so when our door openers, who are very senior level business developers, are representing our clients as if they were a member of our client's team, every communication touch point with a prospect has to build trust, whether it's a one-to-one email, a one-to-one phone call, a voicemail, a message on LinkedIn. It all has to build trust, and it has to build over time. I actually prefer our door openers have several touch points with prospects before the prospect says yes to the meeting, because that makes for a better meeting. The prospects are warm and interested versus not understanding why they're there in the first place. That doesn't help anybody.
Well, thank you for the door opening part too, because for those of us who are in sales, that's often the hardest step, is that first step from going, I don't know you, to, okay, at least I'm interested, to, a 30-minute call or whatever. I also think that The invention of the schedule link was probably the best thing that happened in the last 3 years. I have scheduled over something like 3 or 4,000 meetings over the last 3 years and spent no time arranging them besides giving them my link. My personal preference right now is Microsoft Bookings because I used to work at Microsoft, but Calendly also made it too. So I'm curious, what are your viewpoints on what has to happen to open that door? And the second part then is what's your favorite piece of tech in the last 3 years?
Okay, so I'll answer the first part first. So there are 5 planks of door opening success. This is one of my signature seminars. 5 things have to go right in order to get the right door open. If you think about a chasm, this is the bridge across the chasm. And if one of these planks is missing, the bridge will fall in. The very first plank is the right target. And that doesn't mean just size of company, level of decision maker, geography, and industry niche. It goes much deeper than that. How can you add filters to the kinds of prospects that really need to know you in order to reduce your sales cycle time? How do you get closer to the buy cycle by taking this big world of prospects and making it a smaller world, and then be very disciplined that you're only going to talk to those kinds of prospects, because the road to the finish line is that much easier when you do. In fact, if you have sales that are stuck after the first meeting and they're kind of stuck in the sales process, the right target is often the big offender. They were never the right prospect to begin with. So making this strategic choice as to which are the prospects that are right is critical. Once you know who you're going to go after, then you need to know what to say when you reach out to them. Is it a phone call? Is it an email? But what do you say in order to help? So that's plank 2, is the right message, sales message, not marketing message, which actually is a blind spot out there because people think that marketing message is the same as sales message, but it's not. It's different. What are you going to say? What are the themes that are going to help the right prospect feel that this meeting is going to be the best decision they make this week? What are you going to say in that voicemail? What do you say when you reach them on the phone live? And what do you say in the email that's meant for just one person? And you can't say the same thing more than once. Plank 3 is the right answers for objections. People are going to have objections. They have a vendor, they have a contract. What will you say anyway that will help that person know that even though there is another solution in place, they need to meet you anyway? That's sales messaging, answers for objections. The 4th plank is the right person doing the work. This is the problem we solve. We hire only people with the DNA who know how to get this job done, and they like it. When people have the job of getting in the door, many salespeople would rather put a stick in their eye than do this part of the job. They don't want to do this. They just want to have the meetings. Great. Give them more meetings by hiring our door opener service to make that happen. So we hire senior level people who have this DNA and want to do this job. And then the last plank is the right execution. Is it a phone call the first time? What do you do on the 3rd time, 5th time, 20th time? And how much time are you spending weekly in order to make a difference and get these meetings? Most salespeople don't spend enough time weekly to make a difference in order to get these meetings. That's why outsourcing it makes such sense.
Oh, thanks, Caryn. Super key. That was like the less than TED Talk. That was like 1/8 of a TED Talk.
Yeah.
I have a personal challenge that goes along with that. But being an entrepreneur for the last 27 years, hiring salespeople is a real challenge. So, what would you tell people, especially those business owners who still struggle after 20 years of picking or like finding a way to hire the right salespeople?
Yeah, so there are many blind spots when it comes to hiring salespeople, and hiring the door opener. The person to get the door open is one of the most common forms of sales mishire. And I can tell you that not just the business owners, but the sales managers, if they hire the wrong person for this part of sales, they're going to want to jump out the window. And it's going to take them about 6 months to realize that this is truly the wrong person, even though they said they could do this part of the job. They either can't or they won't. So how do you know? The first thing is identify what you need. Do you have an empty pipeline and you need to fill it? Or do you need a more robust pipeline, more opportunities at an accelerated pace, in which case you're going to need somebody who's strong in door opening? Or do you have a full top of funnel? And when I say full top of funnel, I mean with the right prospects, not just full top of funnel with a bunch of prospects and who cares if you close them, but with the right prospects. So you need somebody who's great at moving them from being the right prospects through to the close. First, identify what do you have going on in your company and what do you need over the next 6 months to a year. Okay. The job descriptions for each of these people is going to be different. Even if you have one person who has to do both, they're not going to be equally great at both opening and closing. They'll be stronger at one versus the other. So you need the job description that focuses on the one that you need. That's a big blind spot right there. Then you need the interview questions to identify, can this person really do this job and do they want to? Because there are sometimes people who can do it and they really don't want to, and you don't want to hire that person. You only want to hire the person who can and will do this job. So we ask questions like, tell me about a time you had to grow a territory from scratch. No prior relationships were given to you. What did you do first, second, and third? What were the challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them? And then it really helps to have somebody who knows the answer to that question hear the answer to that question, because that person's going to know whether they're hearing something that isn't quite spot on. If you have a recruiter doing that, and that recruiter has never done the job of door opening, they may not know, oh, well, if they made this number of calls in an hour, let's say they made 60 calls in an hour, it was 60 crappy calls. And this person obviously can't do this job, right? So they have to know that. Or if they were somebody who believe that calling somebody every day for 2 weeks straight was a good idea, that they obviously hadn't done this job because they wouldn't have been successful that way. So it's important to have the person who understands this. And then what we do, John, is that aside from having our interview process, our onboarding process is an extension of our interview process. So we are onboarding them. We're not telling them how to do door opening because they already did that before for many years. But what we're doing is telling them how to exist in our world, and we are giving them certain exercises, and we're watching as they're doing the exercises. Are they meticulous? Are they detail-oriented? The best door openers are maniacally methodical. It will physically pain them to skip over the next prospect. Not all people feel that way. So what are their skills? And we're doing that through onboarding, and not everybody makes it through our onboarding process either. And then we have better launches as we hire new people. We have a whole list of interview questions. If people want them, they can reach out to me and I'll give it to them. But a list of interview questions for the door opener position might be helpful for people.
Outstanding. I used to do recruiting at Microsoft, and of course, the list of interview questions there was legendary. I've also visited Zappos, and Zappos does something unique at the end of their process. They will offer you $2,500 to quit right now.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
Training
That's
process.
awesome.
Do you have something like that at the end of your training process? I'm just curious. Something unusual?
We don't have that at the end of our interview process, but if they don't get past these pieces, and actually they work on the different parts of onboarding, which is part of our interview process, they work on that with different people within our company. And so we all get together and we're looking for, were they methodical? Did they follow instructions? Were they open to feedback? Because when we're launching a door opener program, it's not like the path has been set. We have to figure out the path for our clients, because if they knew the path, they probably wouldn't need us, or they just need more of what they're having. So we need to be able to figure that out. And that means the door opener can't have an ego in this. They just have to want to get to the right answers. So that's one of the things that we have a meeting at the end to see if the people that we're interviewing and putting through our onboarding process meet those qualifications, which, by the way, are also part of our core values.
Interesting. Okay, let's shift to virtual sales. What do you think has been the best virtual sales meeting you've been on, whether you were the seller or the sellee?
Well, there are a lot of them that are really great. The ones that are great open up and there's a great connection between the people who are selling and the people who are the prospects. And that's probably where we should focus, because we get our clients the meetings, and now the meetings are virtual. Pretty much all of our clients and all of our clients' prospects want virtual meetings. We could do either in person or virtual, but most of them are virtual these days. So the best ones open up with an immediate connection. How have I seen that done well? I've seen when you open up, and whether you have a virtual background or whether you have your actual office background, there's usually something in that background that you can pick on and ask a question about that. And it opens the conversation, it creates rapport very quickly, and it's more personal. There you go. And it's more personal than even if you were in somebody's office. Sometimes you're seeing right into somebody's living room. You're seeing their children. You're seeing their awards behind them. I see your picture right there on the wall. So I might ask a question about that. Right. And a lot of times people say, oh, you have an open door and you're the chief door opener. And I know where to point to for that, because it's funny, but it's quick. Because a lot of these calls are 30 minutes long, with a 45, an hour-long meeting. Those aren't happening as much now. So you have to get to the heart of the matter quickly. So I've seen that happen. And then how do you transition from that initial rapport building, but not to make it run too long, right into the heart of the matter. And so I've seen people say, I know we have a half an hour for this meeting. I want to respect your time. Why don't we jump right in? And then the prospect is ready. We call that in the conversation funnel, ready for that conversation. And then I've seen right around minute marker number 23, which is our recommendation, the seller starts to close up for next steps and nails the date and time on the calendar before the end of the meeting. People who don't do that are awfully sad, because then they have to start chasing the prospect, which is a waste of time and in some cases can be futile. Nail that date and time before the end. So I'd say part of a really great meeting is the smooth management of time within that time period. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, I love this open with connection. Where do you think that works? I know that to me, it usually says two things. Number one is that the person is receptive and is also aware, right? The second one is that they're curious, right? And then the third, of course, you can make a personal connection if you find something that is like, something about, right? This one is like a picture of skydiving. So if you've ever been skydiving, you could say, blah, 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 right? Have you ever gone skydiving? Or I have already done it myself. So I'm just curious for you, why does that immediate connection work? And why does picking things out of the background work, Caryn?
Yeah, so the immediate connection is work because you have to build rapport. And the way building rapport happens has changed as the meetings have changed from in-person to virtual, and from 60 or 45 minutes to 30. You have to do it much faster. The reason why the background works is because people have selected that. That is a personal choice. They have selected that. And there's usually something in there that you can ask a question the response is a couple of sentences, but it doesn't steer you off track and steal 8 to 10 minutes from a meeting that's only 30 minutes long. So you have to really be careful with the questions that you ask, even about someone's background. You can pick mutual connections in LinkedIn. You can do that, but just be careful, because just because somebody's connected to them doesn't mean that they know them. And that could be, or like them. Let's put that out there too. But that could end up taking you off course and take a longer amount of time than you have to build connection in this 30-minute meeting.
Speaking of building connection, I want to say hi to Flory Bazzi, who is commenting right now on our LinkedIn post. Thank you so much for watching. All right, what has to happen for you then in that sales meeting for it to be engaging?
Well, for it to be engaging, it has to be a back and forth conversation. Okay. It can't be a one-way, you just talking as a seller, or you just presenting something as a seller. And that may mean you have to ask more questions than you would have if you were in person, or if you're in a networking situation. It's more questions. Even if you're explaining something, you can explain a little bit And then what I might do is say, let me just stop there and see what questions you have. How is this landing for you? And so you can also fish out the objections along the way too. And then it's more of a back and forth. If you're using AI, some of the AI tools will score you, and you will know how much of the time you spent talking versus the other person spent talking. And you might want to take that to heart, especially in a selling situation. You want to make sure that you're not the one doing the majority of the talking. Presenting is also really important too, because people sometimes think that first meeting is all about a demo, and it's often not. The demo could be the second meeting. It's actually a great excuse to have a second meeting. But in the first meeting, it's really about what are the needs, and the way we say it is gap. We have 2 trademarks in sales messaging, and one of them is about sales messaging gap. What is the gap between what somebody has now versus what they could have if they had your solution, your products, your services? What more do they want than what they have? More is a gap word. So asking these kinds of questions at the beginning and having them talk about that will move you along. And then you can always schedule the demo as a second meeting.
I use a tool called Yoodli, YOODLI.ai, and it actually says here, which is where I'm doing well. My talk time is 40%, you're 60, which is correct because I'm interviewing you. So you should be talking more. But it's important that that's actually something that I look at. Like in a 30-minute meeting, I know it's going well when it's a 50-50. And I would love to hear what are some of your favorite questions, right, to keep it going on. I have been trained that, like those first 23 minutes, often I will spend the entire time asking questions because I need to know more about what this client's doing, and then sometime over to switch over and then present them a solution if that's what they are looking for, customize what they're saying, and then clocking into that. I like your 23-minute mark. I think is a key. But back to the question part, what are some of your favorite questions to keep it going back and forth?
Yeah, so when you start the meeting after you do the connection part, you want to get them into your conversation funnel. So you may say, when we left off last, you were saying that this and this and this is important to you. What's changed since the last time we spoke? What more has happened there? How do your colleagues or your superiors feel about the way you feel about this? Do they want something different or something more than what they're getting? I like those gap words. How would it be if you had things this way or that way? You can ask questions that are yes/no questions that are turned into non-yes/no questions. I like those a lot, where it sounds like a yes/no, but you have an or. And then you give them something else to react to. And they could say, no, it's not the first one, it's more of the second one. And so let me hear more about that. What does that mean for you? If that was solved for you, how would that change your life? Because years ago, like I said, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary of being in business. Years ago, thank you. We're very excited. But you could say, we can save you, your company, 20% or more or whatever. And that might have been interesting a long time ago. Now it's not so interesting, because for people now, it's about what they need to do. What does that add to their plate? How much work does it cause for them to consider another option? So when you're talking somebody through something, it's not only how it could be better for the company if they move down this path with you, but how is it going to be better for them personally? What is that about? It may not be about saving money. It may be about freeing up budget, which when you think about the difference, I said the same thing. But now it's more for that person as opposed to for the company. That's sales messaging. That's a good example of sales messaging.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question, which is, what's the biggest surprise you've ever gotten from asking a question? Here, I'll give you an example. One was that I've been working with this client at Microsoft for a long time, and they came back from a trip from China, and we had a meeting that was leading into their next meeting. And the biggest surprise is this is also something I do as an event culture. I was in team building at the time. So I go, okay, so I'm looking forward to see you on January 16th at 3 p.m. It sounds simple, but reconfirming like one of the core details, such as an event, is so key, because the biggest surprise he gave me is going, no, I'm expecting to see you on the 15th. And I'm like, No, everything on my calendar. And I went backwards afterwards, Caryn. It was in the calendar, it was in the invite, it was actually on the contract that he signed. He signed for the wrong date. All right. And only by saying it again did we catch it, which is the most important thing, which was before the 15th. Because had I showed up on on the 16th, actually on the 15th, I would have gotten 20 phone calls going, "Where are you?" And I'm like, I'm ready for tomorrow. And that would have not been right for that client. So I'm just curious, what is the biggest surprise answer you've ever gotten from a question during a sales call?
Um, well, I think everybody who knows me knows House Thursday at 10 is my mantra. It's date and time, date and time, date and time. And the tagline we use is House Thursday at 10. And not all meetings have to happen Thursday at 10, by the way, because I've been asked that question too. But I've had somebody who's mulling something over. Should we move forward with door opener? I know we need it. It's expensive. Should we do it? They hire these senior level people. I know I'll get my return on investment with one closed sale, but I don't know. And then I go in with, well, how about we start the messaging process next week? How's Thursday at 10 for you? And then I stop. I let them think about it. I leave that silence going, which is really important. And then they've said, okay. Okay. And then we're off and running after that. So, I'm surprised at how often that works, by the way.
Okay, how's Thursday at 10 then, Caryn? Okay.
That's right. That's Thursday at 10.
I will give you another one too, is on my voicemail. Caryn, for those who actually still use voicemail, that's almost antiquated now. But I used to leave, tell me something great in your life. And somebody actually left me a message that was like 2 minutes long talking about how they just beat cancer.
Wow.
I called them back immediately. That
Yeah.
was really, really amazing. And so it's amazing. Questions will unlock. That is the skill of the year right now, too. Questioning is akin to what I call prompting for all those who are starting to use AI, right? The ability for you to prompt better is the ability for you to get more value out of things like AI. Speaking of AI, let's talk about this. What do you think the future of virtual selling is and is going to be?
Well, that's very interesting. And we internally with our messaging process, because as that's plank 2 and plank 3, which is the answers for objections. So we are working with and testing the AI or chat GPT with a Cody overlay, because we need it to know what we think about voicemails. I don't really care what other people think about it and we're looking for our formula. And how do we replicate our formula, but using client information so that we're coming out with more powerful voicemails, more powerful themes of messages, but in a shorter period of time, because it takes a very skilled messaging strategist from our company who's doing this, and it takes a really long time. I mean, it may feel like it's simple, but making sure that every single word works hard for you takes time. Do we put it in the positive? Is it more powerful if we flip it to the negative? So how do we teach this machine, this AI, how to think about messaging the way we do, because this doesn't exist out there for it to pull from. So we have to give it our formula, our best practices. So we are working with that, and the prompts, as you say, has a lot to do with that. It's really critical for that. The one thing I do want to say is the more people will move up this curve of give me a five, I just heard this on a seminar the other day, a 5 email sequence for re-engaging past clients. And I did that, it spit it out, and it was actually very interesting, because I'd say it's about 75% of the way there, but some of the specifics and the personal language that you would have for a client that you've serviced in the past was not there. And so if somebody who's receiving the email would recognize that it was not written by a human, that person is not going to feel about it the way he or she would if it was written by a human. So it's a cautionary point that it can get you so far faster, but then a human has to be in there making it human. It's not about a persona, it's about a person when it comes to sales, right? Persona can be marketing, a person is in sales. It's one-to-one. And then one of the things that I fear is that it will continue this trend that many salespeople have of just trying to send emails or mass communication and leave out the human voice, which is the phone call. And the phone call, it can make this so much more personal. People can easily ignore email after email. From a marketing perspective, it's great for awareness. It works. It's an awareness tool. But for building a relationship with a human, you need human communication too. And that has to be well done. So that's part of our secret sauce. It's the phone call and the email and the well done LinkedIn message, all working in conjunction, building upon a story that's meaningful for the other person. And that person is different from the next person. Most people don't want to spend the time, as everybody's trying to reduce the time they spend by using all these tools, that they forget that there's a human element here, which is what really works from my perspective.
Yep, I'm writing an AI white paper right now on the ROI, or return on investment, in events. And one of the key points here is that you need to establish your trust or non-trust with a new technology such as AI. And a lot of people, I mean, I think why people are interested in AI is because it does get you 60 to 80% there. And
Yeah.
if you really want to be exceptional, right? I mean, if 60 to 80% sometimes is good enough for certain assignments, but not most of them, like, and such as important sales and important touch points, probably not. So that's where a human needs to come in there and, number one, review it. And number two, it's missing the rest of the context. Now, it'd be really cool, for instance, if you had a CRM, let's say Salesforce, something or another, and was actually able to draw from your notes that you took inside of there and then put it inside of there. Now, that's really interesting, because now you're giving the human aspect of something that you remembered and recorded about somebody that the AI wouldn't know unless it has to have that information from somebody or something.
So here's a way that people could move a little further on that curve. One of the things that we recommend is the CRM should have the different categories of objections. Let's say your top 3 objections you're getting in any part of the sales process. So we record that. We're watching for our clients, what are the 3 top objections that we're getting? If you're getting the same objection 75% of the time, you need to either change your target, you may need to change your message, you may need to change your offering to reduce the number of times you're facing that. But the only way you could know is if you're keeping track of what it is. So let's say somebody is talking to me about the fact that they need more meetings. They need more meetings with C-suite people. And so they decide, instead of hiring us, they decide to hire a salesperson instead. Well, we can record that in our CRM, and we're keeping track of the fact that here's the group of prospects of ours who all decided to hire a salesperson instead of do outsourced door opening. And what is that nurture track, considering the fact that they had that specific objection? So we can create a path that includes not just email, LinkedIn message, but also phone outreach to talk about, okay, at what point in time, 3 months, 6 months, how's it going? By 3 months now, you should have your person on board, and that person should have produced X. How's that going for you? And
Yeah.
then, right? And then we could be sending them emails that are specific to that objection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great piece. I have not thought about adding a category for objections. I had a close lost field that is close to this, but I think I may have to add this and see then on statistics what I could get from it. You know, budget is obviously one that people talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Change direction.
Budget is a funny thing if you think about it. I mean, you've owned a business for how long? I've owned a business for how long? You know what? If something is a really good idea, you find the budget.
Yes. Oh, speaking of which, Tae Young says, so this all makes sense. Love it. The challenge is messaging in large volumes and names, but that's when the templated but personalized letter is created and sent. Ooh, what is your solution that remedies large volumes of messaging? This is from Tae Young, CMP, CTSM. Thanks, Tae, for the question.
Yeah. So when you're talking about large volumes of messaging, I'm thinking that you're asking about large volumes of prospects, right? And definitely write in if I got that wrong. But if you're dealing with too many prospects, that's a marketing initiative. Do email marketing campaigns and consider that an awareness play. But if you want to develop relationships with people, you're looking for that meaningful first meeting, especially with a high-level executive. You want to take that big mountain of data and add more filters and make it like this, something that's manageable, so that you can develop relationships with the best ones. If those people became your clients, you'd be so thrilled. Make it smaller. And one way to make it smaller, or if you want to make it a little bigger, is to increase the amount of time you're spending on prospecting. Remember, I said that fifth plank includes the amount of time you're spending pursuing this group of people.
Right.
A lot of times when I ask our clients to keep track of how much time their salespeople are spending, it's too little time to actually make a difference. So you can increase the amount of time you're spending, and therefore you can increase the number of people you're pursuing. But if you have mountains of people, it's too much from a sales initiative perspective.
I'm going to add this too. On the tech side, I use eye contact as my email system, and most of the systems allow you to do this. It allows you to reply to a subset of the people to a mass email. For instance, if they opened it, right, which we know the open rates are anywhere from as low as 5% to maybe 30, 40 if you're lucky, but that means at least they open it, and I can tell you that the engagement factor goes way up. And I sometimes actually will open the email with this saying, dear person, I know that you opened my last email and I appreciate that, and then add on to the message if they clicked. So that's another level, right? The number of people who click versus open is another level. And so customizing based on that. I didn't even know that eye contact had that technology inside of it until one of the eye contact people showed me that. And I'm like, why don't they push this more? Because that's really a great sub-filter set on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many things you can do with that. The open rate, I don't put a lot of stock in open rate because it could be an accident that somebody opened it. It doesn't really indicate interest in our world. If they clicked on something, that's a different story. If they clicked on something and they forwarded it, that's a different story. If they're reading things multiple times, that's a different story. But the real question is who's reading it? Because not everybody deserves the same follow-up.
Yeah.
If the CEO is reading something, well, that's different. If the CEO forwarded it to 5 of the direct reports, well, you don't know where they forwarded it, but let's say they forwarded it, that's meaningful. Well, there are different buckets when it comes to that, and some just fall into a marketing bucket and is part of your marketing campaign, which is more like what you're saying. But let's move over to the sales arena. Some of them fall into the sales bucket. How do you bucketize them? If it's the exact right prospect that you're looking for at the right level, it's the right kind of company and everything is right, which means somebody who's looking at that has to know that. Right? Who knows that? Who's even looking at this stuff besides us? But we we look at that. Well, that person may deserve a personal phone call by a human, right? And not necessarily a human that is a year or two out of college. If you're talking to a C-level person at a Fortune 500 company, you need somebody who has the ability and the chops to hold their own in a conversation with a person like that. But there's a different bucket. What happens if it's somebody's interacting with your information who's the wrong level at the right company? Well, that's interesting. Well, with that person may not need a phone call. You may want to still just send information and things like that there. But let's research now to find out who the right person is at the executive level and open up a conversation there, saying we know that some of the people on your team are interacting with our content, and that made us think that this may be important to you to learn more about, and then to get the meeting after that. So there are different buckets when it comes to that, but that's in the sales arena. And most people, John, forget about the sales arena when they're talking about this email content. Yeah. We review almost weekly what our marketing person calls the clicker report. And we're reviewing that. And there are people I know personally, and they don't need an email because I just talked to them yesterday. Yeah. There are other people who, wow, look at that. This one's new. There are centers of influence on there that I can reach out to and ask them to help me with some awareness in a particular area where they might be strong. So there's a lot to be done with that. From the sales perspective, I find that most companies fall short when it comes to that.
Okay, speed round. Flora's got one last question. I want to sneak it in. Flora Bazzi, an accessibility expert, says, how do we identify what is urgent for the prospect to shorten the sales cycle? You get one sentence. Could be barely run on.
Trigger events.
Trigger events.
Go
Okay.
after trigger events. What's happening in their industry, in their company, with their supply chain that's affecting their revenue, that's affecting their labor pool. What is happening for them that's creating a trigger event that has to do with what you sell, that if you were to talk about that, they would say, ooh, even though I have my other vendor, I need to have this conversation. Let's go ahead and have the meeting.
I'll share a trigger event. One of my really good friends was the creator of Cranium. Remember the board game Cranium?
Yeah.
He's an ex-Microsoftie, and they built all the games in like June, and they had 1,500 shipped to them, and then they tried to sell them all, and they suddenly realized the trigger event in the toy industry is Toy Fair in February. All the games, everything you see at Christmas is actually decided upon in February, so they have enough time to manufacture it. So they had to look for a new trigger event, and they're sitting in Starbucks bemoaning the fact that they just bought 1,500 games. They have no idea where to sell them. And then they looked around and they go, hey, our people are here, and they actually got a meeting with Howard Schultz so they could actually sell their games in Amazon until they could make it to the next Toy Fair. To close up, Caryn, thank you so much for so much value. I'm glad that we got an online audience chatting along with us. If you could get people to remember only one thing from this interview, what would be that one thing?
It would be, if you want more meetings with your most important prospects, call me. I'm at Kopp Consulting. You can reach me on my website. It's Kopp Consulting, KOPP consultingusa.com. And let's talk about how we can get you a door opener to help you get in the door with more prospects.
Thank you, Caryn. Again, that info is in the description for this live stream. Caryn Kopp, thank you so much for sharing some of your decades of sales knowledge with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this is John Chen. This has been another Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. And I actually have some messages for you that I put here on the side. Let me see if I can get them in time. So thank you. So again, Caryn Kopp. And for those chatting, chat us something that you thought was great from today's podcast. And let's see if I can get my messages here. Here we go. So, hey, we're professionals here. If you are here watching us, please subscribe, share, like, comment, depending upon where you saw this podcast. And make sure and take a look, too, for the podcast. It is now distributed on 13 platforms with a new podcast releasing every Wednesday. Coming up next, our Engaging Conference, The Secrets of Planning Engagement, October 23 through 25th. There is a free ticket and, of course, an amazing VIP ticket, engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CON from conference. With all of these amazing people, we're going to have 10 experts speaking about the power of engaging and planning engaging conferences, summits, and masterclasses. You also get one of these amazing toolkits along here. Again, this is where you get the podcast, engagingvirtualmeetings.online. And if you want to be the next guest here on the Engaging Virtual Meeting podcast, go to this link, select interview, and pick out the best hour of your day, just like how Caryn Kopp did it. This is John Chen signing off from the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. We'll see you next time. This is John Chen, the author of the Amazon #1 hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings. I personally want to say thank you for listening to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. It is my passion to help you eliminate bad virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with all of the latest ideas. Hey, I want to meet you. If you want to talk about a virtual meeting challenge, or if you want to be the next guest on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, just go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet. That's engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, MEET, and find your best time to meet up. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging with you online.